Well, this year it's 40 years after students in Soweto protested the introduction and use of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction at schools. Today we talk about that day and what it led to with Barney Mokgatle, one of the former student leaders who marched on that fateful day in 1976. Barney was a close comrade and close ally of Tsietsi Mashinini, who was one of the primary student leaders of the Soweto Uprising.
And of course, we also push the debate forward with our young leaders of today who joined the discussion to touch on current youth and student issues in the contemporary environment. This roundtable discussion is the Economic Freedom Fighter Student Command President Mpho Morolane, who joins us. And next to him is Mcebo Dlamini, who's one of South Africa's well-known student activists. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much, Nozi.
Barney, let's start off with you. Take us back to the day and what your main recollection is of that day and that we now celebrate 40 years later.
Thank you, Nozi. But before I get to the day, let me just give you a brief synopsis of what led us to the march. It was around 1975 when the Department of Education decided that now all black students should study their subjects in the medium of instruction of Afrikaans. But then we had a problem. You see, we don't have a problem with Afrikaans as a language, but we had a problem when they say we must use Afrikaans as a means of instruction, because that thing had a psychological impact on us. Because each time you're stopped by the white policeman or they come to your door, they'll always kick the door and ask, "Where's your pa, where's your ma?" followed by a clap and a kick. You are in town around about 9 o'clock, they'll ask you your permit, your pass, what are you doing in town? Unless you've got a letter from your master. Then we decided, no, we're going to, because if we're going to allow them to make us study maths, science, biology, arithmetic in Afrikaans, and only domestic science and agriculture in English, then it was going to be a problem. Because there's a saying which says, no man can ride on your back unless you stand up. And with the teachings of Steve Biko, that you must know who you are, to know where you are, so that you can know where you're going. So we said, no, let's organize all the students, the high school students, and then march to Orlando Stadium, where we'll write a petition. After the petition, we'll take it to John Foster to show the Department of Education that we don't want Afrikaans as a meaning of instruction. As a language, we don't have a problem. And we even instructed the students on the 13th of June that it's going to be a peaceful march, because it was the first time for the whole group of students to march. And we even told our comrades and fellow students that we should not tell most of our parents, because they might be scared and tell the police and they might stop us even our back. Then on the morning, and the reason why I was in front, because I had a car and a license that time. But where I got the car and the cars, that's another story which I'll tell you next time, not today.
You're 21 at the time.
At 21, got my license, had a car, where I got the cars, something else. So we're moving around organizing the students, because we couldn't take the students to the street without telling them why they've got to go to the streets and why they've got to behave. So hence they listened and cooperated. So on June 16 in the morning, in Morris, we went to assembly as usual. Then after some time, we went to the front and told the students that now we're going to march peaceful. At that time, Naledi High and the Wild West School came around and they joined us. We're singing Kosigerela and Senzenina. You know, it was a nice, cool, bright, but cold day. We marched, but as we were going towards Orlando West, Matsike Pefeni, then the policemen came behind us. We had no problem, because obviously we didn't provoke them. As we were marching, and Tsietsi and the ones in front, and Mokgatle went to the school to go and collect the ones in Matsike. Then the march came to a stop. Then when it stopped and we turned, now myself, Hastings Lovu, Mpho Morolane and Tsietsi Mashinini, then we're now the ones in front. And this white policeman unleashed his dog, an Alsatian, I still remember. Then as it came with his teeth grinding, then we stoned it and killed it. Then without any warning or a word, then the policeman took a gun and shot at us. I don't know why he shot to our side, because it hit Hastings Grove, who was next to me, right here on the forehead. I was there. I was not told by anybody. I did not read that Hastings Grove was the first. I was there next to me. So he was the one who was shot. Then from there it was a pandemonium. Children were screaming, they were crying, and as they picked Hastings to their car so they can take him to the hospital, then, you know, it was stone throwing. Then all the policemen started firing.
On that note, Mcebo, Mpho, you're listening to the story, and this is a story that drives a lot of the work that you do. Mcebo, let me start off with you. How does this particular narrative influence the kind of work that you're fighting for on a daily basis?
Thank you very much, my sister. Well, as comrade is narrating here, it seems as if it happened yesterday, because what he's talking about is very relevant even today. But the reality of the matter is that with what happened in 1976, we wouldn't say that there isn't any significant achievement. Even one of the writers and analysts said that what happened in 1976 seemed like a rehearsal for the revolution that followed in Russia. So we seek our inspiration from them, because what they fought for, we are still fighting today. Because the reality is that we are not free in South Africa yet. What they fought for and pushed them to go to exile, when they came back, it wasn't fulfilled. They called off the revolution very early when they came back in 1990 to 1994, leaving the crisis to us. So we are still fighting battles of our parents, because these are our parents.
Let's bring in Mpho there. If we are still fighting, if you are still fighting, who is fighting and who's the enemy?
Look, I think firstly credit must go to the generation of 1976, the godfathers of the student uprising. And we are still fighting, because the ideals of the generation of 1976 are not realized in the 40th anniversary of the Soweto Uprising. On top of that, 22 years post-democracy, we see many young people who can't have access in institutions of higher learning. We still see many black people living in squalor conditions without toilets. And that's why it is important that we must take the baton from the generation of 1976. The enemy is the system. I mean, in South Africa, there's systematic structures which are inhibiting South Africans, in particular black, to participate in the mainstream economy, to access institutions of higher learning. I mean, currently in universities, if you check the statistics of full professors vis-a-vis those who are not full professors, you still have white people in the main Afrikaners leading. And we can't be comfortable today when nothing has been done, because we're saying that all of us in this country, we should be able to enjoy being South Africans. As black people, we shouldn't be survivors in this country.
So on that note, coming back to you, Barney, would you say that the current leadership, in fact, the leadership that took over the baton and was able to negotiate democracy, have they lived up to the sacrifice that was made on that day in June 16, 1976?
The leadership of the student now?
Yeah.
You see, my problem is they've taken the baton. But unfortunately, those who are sitting in parliament, in high positions, they were there in 76. They knew that we wanted free, equal, and compulsory education. Last year I said on one of the news stations, I said, why can't they sit with the students and listen to their demand? And I said, in all the world, governments are brought down by youth and students. They must sit down with them and listen, because I was saying, yes, the students should not fight the government in the manner in which they were fighting the racists. But at the same time, the people who are in government must understand the plight of the student. It doesn't have...
Maybe that's a good point, Barney, to bring in Mcebo. The number 500 million is a number that's been calculated of the damage that's been done to universities with all the recent arson, violence, and so on. So yes, fees must fall, there are issues. Is this the way to go about improving the education system by causing R500 million worth of damage to infrastructure which now isn't there for people who, whatever the quality is and whoever's doing it?
Well, you see, some analyst once said that 1976 came as a shock. It shocked the ruler and the ruled. It's the same thing that is happening, that happened last year. It shocked the ruling party because it was too comfortable. Those are the similarities. Now, none of us here are advocating for violence, but you react with violence to a violent system. The issues here is the system which is very violent to a black child. The system, those who are fighting now, they are fighting the status quo that our parents who are in office inherited from apartheid. We never changed the system when we took office in 1994. The system is still as oppressive as it was then. It's oppressive now. So because the system is violent, students respond using violence.
On that note, I want to bring you back in, Mpho. It took lives in 1976 to bring about change, systematic change. What's it going to take now in 2016?
Look, the nature of revolutions globally is that there are casualties, unfortunately. I don't think there are individuals, there are leaders who would want to see people dying or people getting injured in the process of the revolution. But that is the nature of the revolution, unfortunately. But also, it must be stated that management of these universities are in cahoots with the government which is in cahoots with capital. And therefore, they are not willing to engage with students. When students are protesting peacefully, the first thing they do is that they call the state force. They call bouncers for students. We're saying that if there's a dispute amongst the students and the university management, let there be a dialogue with all the stakeholders involved. And let us try and meet each other halfway. Because, of course, I mean, if people will just come in a university, shoot students, beat students, students will react.
It certainly seems that there are elements of South Africa's history that are repeating itself. But a very big thank you to our guests who've joined us this evening. A big thank you to Barney Mokgatle, one of the student leaders. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, so I'm sorry. We'll have to just bring you back. He's one of the student leaders in Soweto 1976. He's also a part of the 1976 Youth Foundation, which continues to keep the light on these issues. A big thank you to the Economic Freedom Fighters Student Command President Mpho Morolane and Mcebo Dlamini, who's a student activist. I've just been given a 20-second green light.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks very much, Nozi. I was trying to appeal to our students that in 76, we tried by all best that we don't ban schools, we don't ban clinics. And the reason is that when you organize yourself, you go back to the school. But if you ban the buildings, then you've got no place where to organize. At the same time, if you ban clinics, then when you are shot at, then obviously you don't have a place to go to. So as leaders, try to organize and direct the revolution. Because as a leader, take charge. Because wrong elements also come in and discredit you.
1920.
Thanks very much.